giant stone statue was just slowly crawling up to its feet from the ground when the first mountain spurt came crashing over. Shilian recalled Hua Cheng had once told him that back then, when he was in Mount Tonglu, those 3 large mountains were a menace, always chasing him down. So naturally, they shouldn't be underestimated. Shilian planned to volley up and flip over its head, but he had never controlled such an enormous divine statue before, after all. And to manipulate such complicated movements, he couldn't help but mess up. He didn't manage to jump up, but was instead knocked down once again. Rumble, rumble, the heavens shook and the earth quaked. That giant stone statue fell down near the royal capital of Wuyong and crushed an entire street. With just a slight movement, a series of cracking noises could be heard, and it was the sound of those glamorous residences and palaces being crushed and shattered by that giant stone statue. In the midst of all the shaking, Shilian was almost thrown off again, but Hua Cheng firmly grabbed onto his hand. He exclaimed, "Come with me." He took Shilian and hopped onto the head of that giant divine statue with a few steps. It turns out this giant flower-crowned martial god used a small crown to tie up its hair, which looked like a small balcony. The two hopped onto that crown, finally finding a place to settle, much steadier than standing on the shoulder and in the palm of the divine statue. They hadn't yet had a chance to relax when the mountain spurt came at them again, knocking that giant stone statue back a few steps. Fortunately, Shilian was prepared this time and wasn't knocked down, but he accidentally trampled another series of houses. Shilian couldn't help but ache for them, praying for forgiveness in his mind. Controlling that divine statue to clumsily slip away and avoid those houses, Shilian wondered in bafflement. Why do they keep chasing after me to beat me down? What did I do? It's not that they're chasing Gurga specifically. They'd chase down anyone to beat them down, and Gurga looks particularly conspicuous right now. Such a big creature, Shilian thought. He is rather conspicuous. But before Shilian had finished his thoughts, the 3 mountain spirits came besieging together. They surrounded this giant stone statue, crashing toward the center incessantly, trying to crush the statue to pieces. That divine statue couldn't move a limb, and Shilian couldn't move either. He used all of his strength to have the statue push back, but it couldn't move an inch, so it might not be able to defend. He was just trying to think if there might be another way to escape, and involuntarily backed up a step, bumping into a chest. He looked back, and Hua Cheng grasped his shoulders. "Let everything go and fight. Don't worry, none of them are your match. There is nothing in this world that can stop you in your step." His chest was like the strongest of shields, and suddenly Shilian was filled with confidence. A wave of refreshing currents flowed through his body, and he gave it his all to strike back, breaking through the siege. Rumble, rumble, those 3 mountain spirits were forcibly pushed miles away. Dust flew, rocks flared, smoke and debris rolled. However, after they were pushed back, they immediately came forth again, ready to attack once more. Shilian's hands instantly changed into several hand seals. "Do not block my way," he shouted. That giant stone statue leapt into the air, its feet landing over the head of the 2 mountain spirits. Then its hand rested on the hilt of the sword hung on its waist. "Pull out the sword." This entire string of movements flowed like the streams of clouds and water, and that giant, divine stone statue completed the actions fluently. Its might like a long stretch of a rainbow, without any hesitation, no different than the real person. Sucking in a breath, Kiln shouted, "I'll cut you." I won't cut you yet. Hold on." He was already prepared to swing a glorious sword and cut the mountains into valleys. Yet unexpectedly, when the sword was pulled out, it didn't feel right. When he looked up, he instantly started sweating. That giant stone statue certainly pulled out a sword. But there was only a hilt in its hand. What was going on? Where was the blade? Kiln was dumbfounded, while Huacheng dropped his face and supported his forehead with 2 fingers. "Gege, I'm sorry. I forgot to tell you. I didn't carve the blade of this divine statue. It's my negligence." But of course, Huacheng had carved the statue upon the inner stone walls of the kiln, and in a standing posture. That giant stone statue's robes were flowy and layered, and the sword in the waist was concealed beneath the sleeves, unexposed, so only a hilt was carved. Before the divine statue was injected with spiritual powers and started moving, since it didn't have a blade especially carved, naturally, a blade wouldn't just magically appear. Huacheng frowned slightly, his expression solemn. "It's my miscalculation. It's not exquisite enough. Next time, I will carve out every detail." Kiln could tell he was serious and quickly said, No. It's already very exquisite, really." In any case, there was no blade, so the mountains couldn't be cut. Thus, Kiln instantly changed battle tactics. Bolt. He hastily directed that giant stone statue to jump off from the head of those 2 mountain spirits, tossing that useless stone hilt behind, and stretched its legs to continue its mad run. The 2 stood on the crown atop that divine statue's head as wild winds blew at their faces, their black hair, white robes, and red sleeves flipping and fluttering. Even though they were fleeing, they painted a beautiful image. A silver butterfly flew next to Kiln's ears and transmitted a few human voices. He instantly seized the butterfly and called out, "Is that Fengxin and Mu Qing on the other side? Are Lord Rainmaster and General Pei there too?" Sure enough, familiar voices came from the other end through the butterfly. "I say, Your Highness," Pei Ming said. "There's no need to be so loud when asking questions." "Ah, sorry. I have too much spiritual power at the moment. Let me control it a little," Kiln said. Mu Qing's voice came up too. "What? Did you just say you have too much spiritual power? You?" "Have you all met up?" Kiln asked. "Where are you?" "We've met up with General Pei Jr. and the others, and everyone is in the woods near the Wuyang River. We're about to retreat to the outside," Mu Qing said. Fengxin's voice came. "What's going on your end?" A strong, unusual movement seemed to have come from the kiln just now. "Do you need us to go back and assist?" Kiln quickly replied, "No need. You just stay there and we'll come pick you up very soon. We'll talk then. Ah, we're already here." Ahead was the dried-up Wuyang River, and that giant stone statue crossed the gully and crouched down next to the dense forest. Coincidentally, Kiln saw Fengxin and Mu Qing also come out of the woods, looking around, seeming to be searching for them. However, they were looking in the wrong direction. They never thought to look up, so they didn't see Kiln and Huacheng at all. Fengxin said to the butterfly, "Your Highness, you're not here yet? Where are you?" Kiln cupped his hands to his mouth and yelled toward the bottom, "I'm here already. Look up above your heads." Only then did the two notice that they were shrouded in a gigantic shadow, and they looked up uniformly. Thus, they both saw at the same time an incomparably gigantic Kiln that was currently crouched down by the forest, looking downward at them. There was even a very Kiln-like friendly smile on its face. Huacheng couldn't be bothered to spare a glance at the two down below, and he stood on the side hugging his arms, his demeanor lazy. Kiln waved to the bottom. "Do you see me? Over here." However, because the visual shock of this gigantic version of Kiln was too great, it was hard to notice anything else at first glance. Mucheng's entire field of view was completely overtaken by this face, and he mumbled, "I haven't gone mad, have I?" Both of Fengxin's eyes were filled with this face too, and he mumbled, "What the f***? What the f***? What the actual f***? What in the f*** world is this thing?" Kiln said, Huacheng raised his brows, looking as if he exerted an immense effort to hold back a laugh. Truth be told, there really was never anyone who had ever seen such a large and incredibly realistically sculpted divine statue. In the past, the largest divine statue belonged to Junwu, but even that one was only half the size of this giant stone statue. Fengxin and Mucheng were both too shocked, and Kiln had to yell a few times before they found where the real one was located. The others all came out of the woods one after the other, and when they looked up, almost all of them were so shocked by this giant divine statue that they almost twisted their necks and feet. Kiln didn't know whether to laugh or to cry, and made that giant divine statue lay its hand on the ground, opening its palm. The Kiln volcano has erupted. The fires are going to scorch this area soon, and there are also 3 mountain spirits who might catch up. Come quick, I'll take you all away." The party climbed up the hand of that divine statue, and each found a place to settle. Kiln smelled that suffocating smell of sulfur in the air, and when he looked back, black smoke and flying dust were rapidly spreading, so he closed the palm of that giant divine statue and stood up, continuing its large steps forward. After Peiming and the others got over the shock, they were fine, but Fengxin and Mucheng still didn't come back to their senses. This was probably because they were both too familiar with the face, demeanor, and physique of the owner of this divine statue. So after having it magnified to such a size, the shock was particularly strong. Fengxin was standing on top of this divine statue's shoulder and was still stewing in disbelief. Just who did this? Who carved this? How come I've never seen this before? I've never even heard of it before. Huacheng smiled fakely. There's way too much you haven't seen in this world. Although he didn't clarify who, almost everyone, especially Fengxin and Mucheng, locked down on the same answer. The sky did it. "I almost can't believe this," Mucheng said. "How are you moving this thing? Just how much spiritual power does this need? Do you have enough? I thought you don't have any spiritual power." This time, Huacheng didn't answer. Kiln stole a glimpse at him and pressed his fist to his mouth, answering ambiguously. Well, if there isn't any, you can borrow, am I right? Such an easy thing," Peiming said. "Yeah," Kiln answered. Along the way, when the various monsters and demons saw lava pouring down, blazing fires blowing crazily, they also realized that things were going wrong. And when they saw people were climbing up that giant stone statue, they all cried out, "Wait for me too! Me, I'm coming too! Take us, take us!" However, Ho Cheng said, "Get the hell down." A wave of silver butterflies flew out, shimmering a chilling light, and then there was wailing and howling down below. Yin Yu was cradling Guzi, who was sound asleep, and he called out, "Chengju, your highness, the empty-shelled people and the corpse-eating rats from before suddenly became rowdy and started moving in large groups, looking like they were heading out of Mount Tonglu." The Rainmaster, on the other hand, was riding the black ox, watching the sky intently. "Those creatures inside the black clouds also seem to want to fly outside," she said. Her words were true. Those creatures writhing inside the black clouds were all resentful spirits that thirsted for flesh, live flesh to possess, and then to metamorphosize into the human face disease. There weren't any living beings inside Mount Tonglu. There were only monsters and ghosts, or heavenly officials they couldn't penetrate. So of course, they wanted to get out. Millions of contorted human faces, dragging their long tails of black smoke, swirled like deformed snakes and worms above in the sky. Shilian's hands trembled slightly, but still he said, "Mount Tonglu has a barrier. Nothing outside can come in, and nothing inside can go out, so those resentful spirits shouldn't be able to fly out for the moment." Yet unexpectedly, before he finished, Hua Cheng suddenly clutched his hand. Shilian's heart tightened at the same time by that gesture, and he quickly clutched back. "What is it? Have I drained too much? Sorry. I should conserve my use after all." One of Hua Cheng's hands was covering his right eye. "That's not it. Booger, you don't have to worry about that. It's Mount Tonglu's barrier. It's broken." Shilian was stunned. "What? Broken?" "He only just said not to worry because there was a barrier. What the heck?" "It's broken," Hua Cheng said. "It was probably White No Face who opened it. Those things, they're going to fly out."